Yeah. So call the meeting to order for the home school board. We'll start by doing the pledge, and Anton, you want to lead us? Sure. I can remember who I have.
Ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Kind of deviate just for a second here. We have someone in the audience who is the new principal at the high school, Mark Henderson. He's sitting right over there, so if you'd like to stand up. So it's nice. We're working with you. Thank you.
I'm very excited.
Thanks for being here, Mark.
So, is there any public comment, William? Okay. Reports and correspondence, student government report, Mr. Bell.
Good evening. My name is Dylan Bell, and I'm the ASB president at PHS. Thank you for allowing me to present today. This is actually going to be my final appearance here as president. So, to finish off this school year strong, ASB has planned an incredibly fun homegoing week. This will take place May 31st through June 3rd. We have lots of fun activities planned, including dress-up days for each day. Wednesday, ASB will be serving a pancake breakfast to the whole school. This is a really fun way to get together, to start the day off strong and kind of have a fun energy going into the day and then keep continuing through the rest of the week. On Thursday, we will have a powder puff game, followed afterwards by a luau party, which is again another great way for us to serve food to the students. And as high schoolers, we always love to be able to get extra food. It's always fun. Friday, we'll cap off the week with our final nest assembly of the year. It will include introduction of a new principal, along with lots of fun and messy games. Today, actually, we just concluded our elections for ASB next year. The student body elected Abigail Brown and Brooke Mode to be their ASB presidents for the 2022-2023 school year, and they will be presenting at the school meeting next month. Thank you for allowing me to present to you throughout the year. Are there any questions for me?
No, but thank you for presenting to us and letting us know what's going on down the high school with the students. So, of course, very much appreciated.
Okay.
So what's tomorrow hold for you, and what does next year hold for you?
So tomorrow is, for me, it's tennis state and the rest of the tennis team. It's also track state for the track team, which should be really fun. And next year, I'm going to George Fox to play on the men's soccer team and study kinesiology.
And do what?
Kinesiology. So we go into physical therapy.
Okay. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck tomorrow.
Yeah, good luck.
Okay. Association reports, PEA report is when,
I did not hear from him.
I didn't know if he was on the
Yeah, no, I didn't
computer.
hear from him or, I don't see the OSEA
Okay,
presidents either, so I don't think we have reports from either.
okay. All right, that brings us to Mr. Powell with the Natural Resources Education Foundation. We start by saying it's nice to see you again.
You still here picking? Person, I think it's a good deal. Okay, American society is becoming increasingly urbanized. And one of the things I see with that is we're losing a connection to natural resources. And many of us have kind of forgotten where things come from. For instance, Took a high school class out once, I think they're from Corvallis High School, and the class dealing with sustainability. So I took them out to the woods, and one of the first questions I asked them was, if they could think of anything in their lives that did not come from natural resources. They weren't even sure what natural resources were. So after they kind of figured that out, and amongst themselves, they kind of decided that dairy cow, maybe, but they weren't real sure. And yesterday I was teaching soils at a forest field day, and after doing the soils, I said, "Where's your lunch come from?" Mom. Where mom gets your lunch? Safeway? Where'd Safeway get your lunch? Didn't get much of an answer. So the kids learn about you want to blank the food chain, but there's some dots they don't always connect. So anyway, to me, natural resources are extremely important because I've yet to think of anything that we use that does not in some way relate to natural resources. Whether it's the clothes or food, the air we breathe, the lights up here, the very building we're in, everything. So that in mind, Oregon once had about 20 or so high schools that offered a natural resources forestry program. But with Nature 5 and budgeting and things like that, that dwindled to maybe only half a dozen. And all through that, Falmouth High School had been one of the premier forestry programs in the state. And a lot of that leadership has come from Terry Silvey and currently Simon Babcock. You all know who Terry Silvey was?
Mhm.
Okay, so I don't have to explain that, but he was a class guy. And one of the things he did was, don't take this personal, Rick, but he kind of brought the program from a logger training program to a much better, more well-rounded forestry natural resources program. And I think that was a huge step, and Simon's kind of continued that whole process. So with changes in the Oregon Department of Education, and there's been more support for career technical education, and I'm sure you guys all know that. But along with the CTE, the Oregon Department of Ed, there's been another group called the Oregon Forest Resources Institute, and I'm sure you've heard of them and see their advertising quite a bit. So with the two of them, they kind of partnered and they've developed a lot of forestry natural resources programs around the state. So I need to check my notes here. So right now there's about 39 state schools in the state that have a certified program of study in forestry and natural resources. It's kind of described as a varsity program. In addition to those 39, there's another 8 who are developing a program of study. So they're kind of working towards that. And somebody described that as kind of a junior varsity program. So there's working towards graduating. In addition to those, there's 29 others that offer some forestry and natural resources offerings through mostly their ag programs. So if you add those up, there's about a fifth of Oregon's 355 high schools and nearly half of the 197 school districts that offer some sort of natural resource education. And I know a fellow who works for the Oregon Department of Education, and he said that CTE programs are graduating students across all demographics at a rate that's 13 to 20% higher than state average. So that tells me CTE is really helping to keep kids in school and help them graduate. And with that in mind, the state's forestry and natural resources community really supports these programs. And we not only support these programs, we're willing to put our money where our mouth is and help fund these programs. So one of those is the Oregon Natural Resources Education Foundation. That was established in 2001 with the intent to help establish, expand, improve, and maintain natural resource education. And right now, there's 5 sub-funds of this ONREP, and we have $421,000 in the bank, portion of which we use to help fund things. And one of the sub-funds is the Terry Silvey Memorial Fund, and he tragically died, 20 years ago. This fund was started, and it is specific to Benton County schools. So we met last March for the 2022, we gave grants a total of $10,000. 3,000 of that came from the Oregon Society of American Foresters Sub-Fund. So those are people like me who are professional foresters that put money into things like this to help kids go to school. Walnut High School received a grant of $1,998 from the Sylvie Sub-Fund, which is a fair chunk of money. And I give Babcock a bad time because, again, the Sylvie Sub-Fund is specific to Benton County. Nobody else in Benton County has a program like Walnut High School has. So Simon makes out like a man because he requests, and he's probably the only grant that we get where he's pretty much fully funded with every one of his requests, just because money's there, that's what it's for. And since there's no one else asking for that money, I'm good. So anyway, the point of all this is foresters like these programs, we support these programs, we put some money into these programs, and we see it helping these kids stay in school, graduate, and their homes. So that's my spiel.
Thank you. Anybody got any questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
Good seeing you.
Good resource.
Yeah, thanks. Good resource.
Very good. Okay, moving right along, we'll go back. Lynn, did you have anything, a PA report? Nope, okay. I just checking because we'd already got past that, so.
Thank you.
Next thing on the list is the superintendent report. Good resource, very good.
I wanted to start.
Okay, moving right along, we'll go back.
We did go back.
Report, no, okay. I just checked because we already got past that, so. Next thing on the list is the superintendent report.
YouTube collect.
Good resource, very good.
Sorry, just a minute. I
Okay,
wanted to start.
moving right along, we'll go back.
Sorry. Sorry, thanks, I apologize. All right. Wanted to put out there for starters, first and foremost, is with our grant from OEA Choice Trust, we got $10,000 to help provide support for staff wellness. And it was an appropriate time to put out the reminder that all staff in the district will be provided a free lunch tomorrow from the old spaghetti factory. And the culinary arts students from Philomath High School are providing cookies for dessert. The food's going to be delivered to each individual school for ease of serving, so we don't have to have people go to one specific location, so it's going to be timely. And this is one of those things that we agreed to as a way to, one of the ways that we can appreciate our staff. So we're hopeful that it's going to be a good day tomorrow and that people come hungry for some good food.
What time is lunch?
Depends on
The school.
the school, but I'd say if you show up around 11:45 or 12 o'clock, you'll get fed.
No, I'm not doing it. To get paid. I was just wondering what time lunch was.
Yep. So, I put in here just a repeat information because I want to continue to put it out there for families specifically about the federal aid for school lunches, and it won't be available for the 2023 school year. We've had this year where all students could eat breakfast and lunch for free. And we're going back to pre-pandemic way that things operate. And so we've got the ability for families to apply for free or reduced price meals like they have in the past. And there is something called the Oregon Extended Income Program, which doesn't go to a level of the free or reduced price, but it adds another level of students and families that can access the free meal program. So it's just how it's designated, but it does allow more students to be able to have free lunch. Also, the question was that each school does maintain a small donation fund, because the last thing we want is for a student to show up and say, or to say to them, sorry, you can't eat today. That's just not in the realm of what we want to do. One of the questions that I was asked was to come up with, working with Corvallis Food Service, who is our food service provider, what would be a cost estimate for free meals for all students? And given that people would fill out the appropriate paperwork for free and reduced lunch or the Oregon Extended Income Program, their estimate was about an additional $215,000 to be able to pay to get lunches in the hands of all students, which is a chunk of change. But we also know that there is work being done at the state level that who knows over the summer if somebody may come back and say, we've got this extra pot of money, or they may come back and say, let's put more money into it to be able to make sure our students can eat. But for right now, with the way things are set up, we want to really make sure that parents understand what's changing and that we make sure we can get free or reduced price meals. Actually, the reduced price meals are free. The state has agreed that there's not that distinction between free and reduced price. Wherever you fall in those categories, it's free. And so that's really nice, but we'll keep our eyes peeled on that, but want to make sure we have as many kids as possible eating. The summer programs, there will be lunches served, and those will be free throughout the summer. So this takes place just in the start of the next school year. So we'll continue to put that out. Summer learning, I'm going to give Dr. Johnson a piece of information. Grace Spalding, teacher at Philomath Elementary School, is acting as our summer program coordinator and working close with Dan. And they have plans that have emerged since the time that I typed this. And so I'm going to let him be able to share that kind of that information with us.
Okay, so Grace sent an email today saying interest surveys have been sent out for staff. We have put staff postings, at least in the system, for approval. So hope they go tomorrow so that we can hire summer staff. The exciting thing is for internal candidates, we're looking for a very, very complex application process. Basically, a simple letter that says, sign me up, I'm in, I'm breathing, I have a pulse. Those two qualifications would definitely be helpful, as well as licensure for teachers and for IAs. So a simplistic application process that way. Grace is actively working on engagement and enrichment activities. She's got contact out with Chris, she says, from the STEM Hub. We've got contacts out with Activity. There's a Breathe for Change, which is some yoga they did for us last year. We have other people looking at varied camps they want to put on for the students to keep them engaged over the summer and excited about learning. The other piece is we'll be working with transportation as well. Summer is covered by a matching funds grant. I assume it was rejected last meeting, but basically we cover 25% of it, and then the other 75% is covered by the state. So it's a really great way to get students engaged. One of the changes from past years is, it kind of lines up with the summer lunch program, is the academics time will be from 9 to noon Where in the olden days, it was 8:30 to 11:30. We're switching it to half an hour because lunch traditionally is served at Clemens at 12:15 or what other sites that they have around the city. So we're excited about making things happen for the students in our district.
Thank you. And Mrs. Couture, I think you still have all the lit camp materials at Clemens, or have
No,
they moved?
they-
Oh,
Mine are Clemens, the others have been
Okay.
delivered to be.
so the information for that at the end of August is already on site, so there's been a lot of planning that's happening and things are ready to go, so it's awesome. We have an opportunity that we've chosen to take advantage of, offered through the Strategic Partnerships Department at the ESD. They have partnered with the Center for High School Success, which is an organization that really takes a look at ensuring students are on track to graduate from high school. And it's actually asking people to work in teams, teachers to work in teams, to look at data and be able to look at what can we do to make sure that there is we're maintaining, especially our freshmen being on track to graduate, but all of our students to really make sure people are connected. So with this, we get some training support for teams of our teachers and administrators, and also get, I'll call it consultation support from the Center for High School Success. And we had a conversation about, do we have the bandwidth to be involved? And we decided, yes, it's a very, very beneficial thing. It's a good opportunity. It gives us something centered to be able to look at. Our graduation rates have been good. We want to make sure that we continue to look at that for both Florida High School and Florida Academy. It also gives us the opportunity to take a look at what are we doing well. So not only looking at have we got all students on track to graduate, but if we do, what's causing that to happen and what's celebrating. I had the opportunity at the end of April to participate in the inaugural first day of the COSA Superintendent Equity Academy. And what that was is the School Administrators Association in Oregon wanted to say, how do you lead through a desire to promote and support equity within your schools? And so it's really specifically directed at those people in the highest leadership at a district to be able to say, how do we spread this out? Because if we don't have that kind of commitment all the way through and the ability to be able to talk through, work through, we need that. So it's been good as a group of superintendents to be able to engage in those conversations. We will go back again in June to be able to have a full day in our last session. And they talk specifically in this, although we've branched off into other areas of equity, their primary focus has been, like it says in there, the role of race and culture. And one of the reasons that they chose to start that direction is if you look at all kinds of things that make up an individual, there are certain things that we can share or not share. You know, we don't have to share marital status. We don't have to share religious belief or not. Race is something that really you can't hide because you can see it in most instances. And so that's the reason that the choice was to begin there, and how we've continued to work through. It's been very, very interesting and informative, and I'll have more to report after we go back in June. We're continuing to heft up on our staffing, getting a lot of people hired. I think there are some that wonder if they'll ever get out of an interview committee. It's nice to have Mark here this evening. We will get in our next month, I think it's on your agenda for our student services position, Cynthia Barthuli, who will come to us from the Brookings Harbor School District. And she and Dawn Dorman, who's our acting special ed director, will be meeting, actually starting tomorrow. They're going to spend some time together to be able to do some transition conversations. So we had a district visit with LBL. If you remember last month, I talked to you about their huge hit in finance for the 21-22 school year that impacted us. And so this was our opportunity to be able to meet with their leadership regarding our services for the 22-23 school year, inclusive of the move to a new student information system that will happen in 23-24, and how that is unveiled and paid for and things like that. So it was a good opportunity to be able to catch up and know kind of where we stand in our service provision opportunities. So it's always a good meeting. I reported also last month that AVID, the advancement via individual determination, we have 2 groups who will be attending, and we're now at 15 full staff members because Mr. Henderson's going with us. So we'll have some people go at the end of June to Seattle, and another group go to San Diego at the end of July. The other piece of the puzzle on there is our local option levy. I wanted to come back around to that, and it is on our agenda a little bit later. Would you prefer I wait till that point and we'll come back around to it?
Yeah.
Okay, I will do that. And then the rest of this that will be posted are just days that things are happening. We're busy in the end of the year. Lots of music programs, a whole lot of field day activities, field trips, and everything else that could possibly happen is happening. So it's a busy place. People are getting out more and more and doing more things, and it's just an awesome opportunity to be able to see our students and staff be so involved in things. So that's my report.
Thank you, Sue. Anybody got any questions? Okay. At this time, I'll jump in here before I go to finance, and just as a FYI for everybody, we are in the process, kind of in the middle of the process of a superintendent evaluation right now, happening on a yearly basis. Just wanted to throw it out there so that everybody knows that, she does get evaluated. And we've sent out a questionnaire and got the results back, and we're in the process of correlating all that and seeing how things are, and then we'll just continue with the process, and hopefully by next board meeting, we'll have a public statement that we can put out on how things are going. So that was just so that everybody knows that it's in the process. So next we'll go to the finance report.
Like always, the financial reports were in the board report. There's no questions about those. I wanted to thank all the board members for the budget committee meeting we had last Thursday. There was a lot of discussion. We went through a lot of pieces for the budget, and hopefully when we come back together next Thursday, we can iron out the last few pieces and go for approval. We got a new state school fund forecast for 22-23, and there really isn't any change, so I don't anticipate any increase in revenue or the budget pieces, so I don't think we'll need to change anything. I know you've heard before that we're working in 3 years. So they just recently finished the May reconciliation for 2021. Last year. We're working in 21-22 now and budgeting for 22-23. So there's all sorts of moving pieces. The reconciliation for 2021 was favorable for us, so we did get a bit of an increase in our May payment this month. So that will help boost our ending fund balance going into next year just a bit, which helps with the budgeting. And then the last piece I have, you'll see a resolution in your packet for the consent agenda. When we budgeted for food service for this year, we did not anticipate that costs were going to be as high as they are. So our food service comes as a flow through to Corvallis School District. We get federal funds in and pay it directly back to Corvallis Food Service. we don't see an increase in cost directly to the district. But we do have to flow those funds through, and so in the budgeting sense, we have to reappropriate funds. So the resolution is approving unanticipated funding that comes in, and it will just go directly back out to Corvallis. So when we get to that point, that's what that resolution is for. And I don't want to have anything else.
Okay,
Answers
thank
questions.
you. Anybody have any questions? All right, we'll move on to strategy and discussion. We are going to take item number 4, the Narcan discussion, and move it up to the front. So we can go ahead with that discussion now if you guys would like.
Yeah, we have just a brief little slide presentation. Is it okay if I just stand up here?
Yeah, sure. Whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay. So I haven't met some of you. I'm one of the district nurses. My name is Laura Bryant. The students call me Nurse Laura. And we have Nurse Tina here. Probably you guys know Nurse Tina. And we are here to propose that at least the high school have something called naloxone, or it's better known as Narcan on it. So I'm just going to go through a few slides with you and just kind of give you my argument for that. So just real quick, everybody's probably heard of opioids. What are opioids? They are originally from the opium poppy plant, and natural forms, opium, codeine, morphine, I think most of us have heard of those. And then through the years were developed like semi-synthetic forms, which were used in hospitals and, you know, doctor's offices pretty commonly. And you may know them as Percocet, Vicodin, Dilaudid. And then heroin is a street drug, but it's still semi-synthetic. And then through the years, we had synthetic forms, and everybody's probably heard of fentanyl. There is something called carfentanil. And these are drugs that are purely synthetic. They can be used for good, and then they can be produced on the black market and have some pretty harrowing effects. So our concern as of late is really the fentanyl. So that's why I have that highlighted. Maybe go to the next slide. Just real quick, how are opiates acting in the body, or opioids acting in the body? Well, what is so attractive about them to abusers is that they produce euphoria and they kill pain. So it can be very easy to sort of get addicted to that feeling of euphoria. And so people will just want to keep taking more and more. But what also happens with opioids, if you take too many, they depress respiration. So what will happen is you actually stop breathing. That's a big deal. Also, they will slow heart rate and lower your blood pressure. Yeah, so they just slow everything down, including intestines, GI tract. So like some people would associate opioids with like constipation. If anybody's ever had to take them for surgery or something, they slow everything down. But the big thing is they slow respiration down. So if your respiration is slowed down enough, it can be fatal. So what makes fentanyl so dangerous? What is it that is really concerning about it? One is that it is 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine. It's very inexpensive to produce. It is used to cut other drugs that are expensive to produce. So you can have this cheap, very strong opioid that you can use to mix with things that are expensive to produce. And so it's kind of a no-brainer for black market manufacturers. It doesn't have a taste, it doesn't have an odor, so a kid can have it and not have any idea that it's in their drug. Yeah. And just for illustration purposes, a very, very tiny amount is a lethal amount. Next slide. Yeah, and then just again for illustration purposes, so fentanyl can be used to fake Percocets, for instance. So kids might think, I like the feeling of a Percocet, and that's not very dangerous. I had that after my leg surgery. And so I'm like, well, I will buy some Percocet from this guy on Snapchat who says he's got some Percocet. And black market manufacturers can make it look exactly like what they would have gotten from their pharmacist. I mean, if you look at this, I would actually think the authentic was the fake one. So they are so good at producing something that looks real. But the problem is they produce inconsistent batches because it doesn't mix well. So I use the chocolate chip cookies as just an illustration. You can get a pill that has a tiny amount of fentanyl, or you can get a pill that has a lot of fentanyl. So if fentanyl is going to cause you to slow your respiration, and you get a pill with a lot of fentanyl in it, you can see how dangerous that can be so very quickly. So, and we don't have to talk about this. I realize that's what you guys probably don't care so much about the symptoms, but we could go to the next slide. The reason that Narcan works, so Narcan right now is available as a nasal spray. So something as simple as what you might be familiar with, like an allergy spray, where you just sort of squirt up the nose. Narcan is the trade name for the drug naloxone, and it can reverse an opioid overdose really quickly, within a matter of 2 to 3 minutes. So you can have a student who is, barely breathing, and you can give them a squirt of that, and it can reverse that in just a matter of a couple of minutes. And the way that it does that is the opioid, there's little receptors on your nerve cells, and the opioid's gonna lob onto that, and then the Narcan will just knock it straight off. So it just comes right in and knocks off the opioid, and it reverses the overdose. So it's really sort of a miracle drug in that respect. Next slide. So the question should be, is it safe? And the answer is unequivocally yes, it is safe. It's not a controlled substance. In a lot of cases, you don't even have to have a prescription for it. Walgreens right now is giving it out without a prescription. So it's not addictive. It's not going to harm somebody if they are passed out for a different reason. And you gave them the Narcan thinking, oh, they have a history for drug abuse, and then it turns out that wasn't the reason that they were passed out. It's not going to harm them. So, it's not a controlled substance, it's not going to hurt them, and it is not going to be a liability for anybody who does give it to them. Okay. So if your good faith effort to save somebody's life, it's not going to come back to you. So the question is for us, what do we need to do to get it? Well, we want to get your buy-in. We want to make sure that you guys are in agreement with us that this makes sense. We would want to determine which schools should have it. I think at the minimum, the high school should, and it might be all that we could actually access. But I feel pretty strongly, and I think Tina does too, that the high school should probably have it, and the state and the county are both sort of pushing us in that direction as well. And then we would have to determine, which staff wants to be trained to do it. There's a real quick training program, so we could get anybody who was willing to, and we would train them at the beginning of next year, just like we do with the EpiPens, just give them a real quick training process. There's a OHA protocol, so it's not something that we would have to invent, it's already sort of outlined for us how we would do it. And then, just figure out where we're going to store it, which it's just room temperature, so that's pretty easy too. And then just obtain. And there are several programs that would help us obtain it. That is our little presentation. So do you guys have any questions?
Question. You said it can be stored at room temperature. I'm assuming that it's locked up somewhere.
Well, we just.
I hate to assume anything, but.
Right. So I think our idea was to keep it in our office house rooms, so it would be understood where to go to grab it. Wouldn't make too much sense to lock it up and have it be inaccessible.
Because it's not a narcotic, it's not something that people are gonna search out.
Right.
Yeah, in the
Okay.
event of an emergency, we want people to have access to it quickly.
Yeah, I realize that, but I just didn't know what, you know, the storage, if it needed to be locked up, or, you know, if it could be in your office or whatever, that's presumably safe, that people aren't gonna be coming in there and taking things that don't belong to
Right,
them.
yes, very much. I hope that people aren't in my office. Yeah, we would treat it like we would our, you know, our EpiPens that we have as backup, and just, you know, those of us who are willing to be that person would know where to go straight away and have access to it
Okay.
without fumbling for keys and, you know.
As far as the schools, I guess my question would be, you know, I mean, yeah, the high school presumably is where it may be used more than anywhere else if needed. But even at the other schools, if you have an adult that comes in that has a problem,
Yes.
you know, it may be nice to have it at the other schools just for that specific purpose. I mean, you wouldn't think an elementary student would have a need for it, but then I don't know, I mean.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I do. I just thought at the very least, I want to get it for the high school. And then if we can obtain it for the other schools, I think it would be a good idea.
Well, I think it would be a wise thing, if we have it in one school, we should have it in all the schools, so that everybody knows that the district is equipped with it, not just one or two locations out of the district, and then some people may not know where those locations are at or whatnot, so.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you have any estimates as to the cost to the district?
Well, there's a program that would give it to us free for the high school. I know that much, and that's why I said at the very least the high school, but I priced it out and it's not an expensive medication. It's about $50 for two. It comes in packs of 2. Because one thing is you might have somebody go back into overdose, like it sort of fades after about 90 minutes. Of course, for us, we would have called emergency medical and they would have been transported, but it comes in packs of 2. So $50, it seems a small price to me.
The EpiPens cost more than that, right?
If you open that pack of 2, is the other one still good?
Yeah.
By itself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Two other clarifying questions. Did you say a person can get this at Walgreens without a prescription? Like
No.
anyone?
No,
Okay, and
they
then,
only to an individual though.
no, that's helpful, but I'm just trying to
Yeah.
understand the
Yeah.
regulation compared to our narcotics. And then, Benton County Health and Oregon Health Authority are encouraging school districts to have this.
They are, yeah, they've been sending out a lot of material to sort of get us on board with this.
Do we know what Benton County fentanyl overdose statistics are at this point?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I know the state of Oregon had, I think, almost 300 in 2021. Overdose deaths.
Overdose deaths.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I know Oregon ranks in like, depending on what verbiage you want to use, either the worst, you know, we have the most, among the most opioid addiction
Okay.
in Oregon, and the least access to treatment out of all 50 states, unfortunately. I think we came in like 49th or 50th on this most recent survey.
Yeah.
So
And with the fentanyl being so readily available, especially on the West Coast, it seems like it is a very common sense move for the district.
Are we looking for a vote on this, or?
I think that's appropriate. I mean, we could, when I raised it last month, we could go ahead and do it. But with something this significant and it's a different twist, I would really, we felt it would be important to have the endorsement of the school board to be able to say, yep, we think it's a good idea, no, it's not, and really have the school board's involvement rather than just doing it. And really making a smart decision across everything.
Yeah, and that's actually part of the state of Oregon's recommendation, is that you first go to the school board and get their, you know, sort of thumbs up. So this is the first step in the process, is making sure that everybody is in agreement.
Okay, I know I would prefer, if we're gonna vote on this, that we do it as a district-wide program as opposed to just one school. So I'm willing to entertain a motion.
I would so move that we do the Narcan, try to get Narcan into all the schools at some level. For availability in case of, like you said, the lower grades might be more likely to the parent at an activity or something like that. I mean, might be the issue, but I think you're right. I think it should be at all the schools.
I will second that.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
One point of discussion, if we have to change the policy, we might want to put that on our agenda for the next policy committee. And then we'll bring that back to the board.
Good call. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, having a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Really?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thanks to Laura and Tina for their work in being able to put this together. It's a big shift, but it's really good, and they've been right on top of it.
Okay, we will move to the elementary curriculum adoption.
Hello.
Howdy.
There are three of us that are coming up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You can't get away with that.
I thought we were gonna stand and talk about it. You can sit maybe so far. This is to pass along or?
No, I think we get our own.
Oh, each.
Thank
Oh.
you.
Can I do this? So we are part of the committee that has been working to decide upon which curriculum we would like for our literacy curriculum. And Brian is passing out to you right now a quote that we have for cost of the program, and also just an overview of what the chosen curriculum entails. So with me today, for those of you that don't know, I'm Abby Couture, the principal at Clemson Primary School. With me, we have Molly Bell, who is our grades 2 and 3 RTI specialist at the elementary school, and Brian Traylor, the principal at the elementary school. All right.
So we just really want to be thankful for our adoption committee, and we had teachers from CPS, PES, and Logic involved. And they spent hours going through materials, and so it was a really great group to work with as we looked at the different curriculums and really dove deep into the needs of our teachers at all of the buildings. We started with the list of state-approved curriculums. And narrowed that down to 4. Again, we were looking at curriculums that were approved for kindergarten through 5th grade. We knew we wanted an integrated program across those buildings, and so that narrowed down our choices a little bit. And then we, after looking at online and video presentations that were done for the state adoption process, we narrowed that down to 4 programs. Those are the ones that are highlighted there in orange. And we had materials for those 4 programs sent in for the teachers to review. And our review process for those materials, we used a curriculum evaluation tool that was provided to us by RTII, our coach, and it really dives deep into these curriculums, meeting the science of reading and really all the foundational skills, starting at kindergarten, building all the way through what our 5th graders need, and just looking for those components in all aspects of the curriculum. And it was great to have the perspective of teachers at different grade levels, really putting their eyes on that, looking at the kindergarten materials, looking at the 5th grade materials, and really seeing if those pieces were there across all of the grade levels. And after we reviewed that, we decided to go deeper into 2 choices, benchmark, and then the Hewlett Mifflin Harcourt curriculum.
So after the review, we had presentations by those 2 publishers. I think most of the staff attended both of those. We then asked the staff to respond to a survey. And the initial point of data was rating the 2 programs. And it is somewhat subjective, but we have to trust that they are rated based on the evidence they they determined in the two programs. And we had 11 select the Into reading program, which is a Mifflin, 6 preferred the benchmark program, and then 6 rated in the same. So overall, well, a good consensus. If you take the 6 tied and give each of those categories at 17-12. So we felt that it wasn't so close that we had to go back and figure out another way to determine it. So some comments, and I just went the positive route. Every program has its flaws as well. We know that, and that's why we, people like Molly in particular and that RTI team fill some of those gaps that the program can't meet, and teachers themselves fill those gaps. And some of the things that the teachers commented, I thought were of merit, were, as Molly has said, based on the science of reading. And Molly can speak better to this than I. The current program we have, REACH, is now 5-6 years old, and the science of reading has progressed, and it doesn't have as robust resources for teaching reading that these new programs have. Engaging content stories, obviously critical. Strong online resources, teacher resources. All programs, it seems like anymore, have online resources. Family-friendly online resources, which is a nice tool for families to engage with the curriculum. Themes related to the science and social content that we're already teaching. User-friendly format in the teacher editions. And by the way, the books are over here on the table if you want to take a look at them later. There's also some effective writing resources in the program, and that's something we hear our teachers speak to quite often. We need better tools for teaching writing. Engaging books such as novels, group books, small group books, level readers, and decodable stories. Strong vocabulary component, handwriting resources, effective differentiation tools. I can't read that green, no terrible color. I chose that. Doesn't say.
Readers kept by the students.
Oh, thank you.
I couldn't read it either.
Yeah, so these books that have all the stories, and then the students actually keep at the end of the year, and so they have essentially an anthology stories at home. And kids like to read books over and over again. They didn't know that.
So our top choice was the Houghton Mifflin Harcourt's Into Reading. And we can go to the next one. So this is just a short little video to give you an idea of what it's about.
Oh, I've got my sound off. I'm gonna have to do it so it doesn't echo.
Oh, we can skip that one if you want to, Susan.
Sorry about
I should have
that.
given- No, I should have given you a heads up.
I-
I'll just talk about it. So we can go to the next slide. So like Brian was saying, one of the really neat things about the curriculum is typically the students in the past have just gotten a textbook with all the stories in it. And so you can pass that out and everybody holds their textbook and reads the story. Well, this curriculum actually has the whole book as something that kids can write in. So the kids get the story and the vocabulary is highlighted, all the information is here. Kids can write in the margins. There are graphic organizers built in to be able to answer questions, and writing is built in to the curriculum as well. One of the things we found with our current curriculum is that there is no handwriting built in at all. And the foundational skills of phonics and phonemic awareness are not built into our current reading curriculum, whereas this is heavy in that area. So our youngest students at Clemens and at Blodgett will have the foundations built in, and thus we should see stronger academic achievement as they progress. And that way, when they get to Molly, we won't have as many students struggling. This is an example of the first grade. You'll see highlighted words. These are what we would call their sight words or the vocabulary words they're learning. Oftentimes we'll have the kids go in and we have the kids highlight these words, which takes time, and are already done. So they can find the words here for them, and then they can interact better with them. And one other really positive piece that the teachers thought that was nice was every single story you see here is also online through the program called ED that students can access, and then families can access from home as well. So heaven forbid we should ever have to go to distance learning again, but if we did, this is all online and we can just click a button and families can access the curriculum. And they can access it from home if they're sick or anything, so it's pretty neat. It also has a component to it that all of the stories that are there can be read to students. So if we have students that are struggling, one of the strategies we use is to put a set of headphones on, the students can read along at grade level with what this class is doing and read that and listen, and then get the instruction at a lower level, but they're still able to access the everyday instruction, which is most important, so they can feel like they're following along with their peers. The website is very user-friendly. Handwriting, writing, and social emotional learning is built into this curriculum. So that's all the big things that we are focused on right now. It's nice that all of the social emotional learning is built into. Like I said, foundational skills are there, and this curriculum is aligned with our current initiatives of ECRI, which is enhanced core reading instruction strategies that primary teachers have been trained in K through 2. And so this that aligns with this curriculum, and also RTI, all of those pieces are built in, all of those practices to this curriculum. So one of the things that is included with this is all the small group readers, the teachers' books, the teachers' access to the online curriculum, student access to online curriculum. The cost that you see in that quote will include 6 years of this, and that includes these pieces that go home with the students every year. You might think, well, they're not gonna be able to keep this nice and new all year long. This is a first grade book. There are actually 5 books through the course of the year. So this is good for a couple modules, which will last about a month, and then they'll get a new one. So these go home and the kids have access to those books forever if they get to take these home. And then the cost is for every year. So we're not gonna have to pay again next year for the books next year. It's already built into that quote. The teachers had expressed interest in getting a program called Waggle that is a supplement to this. It's an online program that we could use where students get online and it does a screener and sees where students are at reading, and then it determines what skills need to be retaught, and the kids get it automatically on the computer. And so during our small group reading time, the kids could log on to their Chromebooks and they could practice those skills during small group reading time. And then it tracks their progress. Teachers can log in, easily see how the kids are doing and what needs to be done. Teachers can assign assignments to them in that way. So that was included. And then the upper grade level teachers really were interested in novels studies, and they are included with this curriculum. So that was exciting. And then intervention is built in at every level, and teachers will have access not only to 4th grade reading, they'll have access to all the other grade levels. So if you have students that are underperforming, they can get access to things there, and they can also get overperforming students some higher level access to.
So we wanted to adopt, and we did adopt, are adopting, or proposing adoption of K-5 curriculum. When we initiated this conversation mid-year this year, there was some thought about, well, maybe Clemens will adopt, and maybe PS won't. And so it was, we really came to the realization that we are a K-5 elementary system, even though we have 2 buildings. And we really need to have our students coming from Clemens into a program where they have momentum and familiarity with, and builds on their skill sets in a systematic way. So we determined that we did need to adopt K-5. The PES staff, the initial presentation of them, and I own it, was, what do you think? You guys want to adopt next year? Or maybe some funding for it? The answer was pretty solidly no. We like what we have, we're happy with what we have. And Molly can add to this if she has a different version. But that wasn't a satisfactory answer ultimately in the terms of us having a K2 program and then keeping the old REACH program 2 through 5. So we pushed back and said, no, we really have to adopt K5, but we will give you PES the option of waiting a year. You can continue with REACH for this next year and start to become familiar with it, do some deep dives, do some in-service on the REACH program, on the Into Reading program, and be ready to go in earnest in the fall of 23. So that's why we're doing the two-tiered adoption.
That's a good question. So if the total price is what I see for 6 years total, if we're not utilizing it the first year at PES, we're essentially losing.
No, this is just K1.
Right. We're not paying for a lot of the resources this year.
Oh, okay, that's what I was just.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. They are going to allow us, we believe, Molly, Abby has done a good job working with the sales rep. We're going to meet Molly and Emily, Alpha and I next week to determine what pitch we want to make to the publishing company for piloting resources for next year.
So the idea and our ask of you tonight is for your approval to purchase materials for K1 for this school year. And then we will purchase for grades 2 through 5 next school year. So we need your approval that into reading is something you would approve, and that you would approve the adoption in 2 separate years.
Do you have preliminary costs on the, 2
Yes,
to 5?
I have the cost for a K5 adoption, but that did not include the WAGL that's included in this. The WAGL, when we added it, was expensive. So if we were to do K5,
Now,
if we did K5 now, it's $170,000. And that did not include the WAGL purchase. So what we're going to work with the rep to do now is to do kind of a pilot with WAGL and see how it goes and see how we implement that, and then determine if that's something we want to do K5 for the rest of the adoption, because it's a significant cost added to the original.
Just as a reminder, we put $150,000 into our ESSER budget for instructional materials. And we apart from the 50,000 we had in our general fund and the middle school already purchased. And so I asked the team to bring the high-end estimate inclusive of WAGL, because we don't have all the answers yet of, there are some other ABC mouse and stuff like that some other individual teachers are using. And so we want to make sure that if we're going to spend the money to purchase that component, that everybody's using it and we're getting maximum use from it. And so that's why it caused us to start talking today about, maybe we see what the cost would be to pilot that component for a year, rather than the 6-year buy-in for that particular component. But we wanted to be able to put out everything, knowing that we've got some questions to still answer. But we also want to make sure that we're looking at one of the worst things that you can do is to purchase pieces of an instructional materials package. And then after a year, you're saying, well, this doesn't work, because you've missed out on some of the ancillary pieces that are so important to be able to do. And the group has done a lot of hard work looking at materials.
perspective on this, if you take the total cost, divide it by the 6 years, and divide it by per student, it's less than $10 a year per student for literacy, for core literacy. It's not expensive on a per child basis.
Yeah, that's the absolute core of academics, period, is reading and writing. If you can't get the kids up on reading early on, then they struggle for the rest of their academic career.
I guess where I was going with my question is, we have a cost, I'm assuming it's 64,856.40 for this year.
Correct.
Okay. And then and I'm also making an assumption that they're gonna like it, we're gonna want to purchase the K5 edition of it. So how much, this covered the 64,000 or 68,000 covers the 6 year, 64,856.40 covers the 6 year for K1.
Right.
Okay, and then how much more would it be for the 2 to 5?
Times 3 would be the total cost, times 3. So essentially it's 65,000 times 3. So 100.
Times 2, right?
Well, we have 4 grades. so-
Oh, you have this cost, and then you would have it 2 more
Yeah,
times.
right. It's not that much cost for 2 grades. So 65,000 for K1, 65,000 for 2-3, 65,000. for
Be about
4.
195.
So,
I was getting two conversations
That's
at
right.
once, and I'm not very good with that. Oh, so it was 64 or say 65 round numbers for the K1.
for 2 grades, right? For 2 grades,
Yeah, and then you got the
4 more.
2, 3, and then the 4, 5.
Right.
So you got another 65,000 plus another 65,000. Okay, so, but that's what I was trying to get with the total cost, and then that 65 for each 2 grades covers the waggle and everything.
Yes, but you have, go ahead, you probably are.
Well, she was gonna say.
This shows WAGL being included for K-8 for 6 years, so that wouldn't be an additional $24,000 added on top of
That's a good
that.
catch, because I didn't.
Because
catch
it's
that.
already
I was gonna
included.
say.
So I would actually wonder what K-5 costs, or if it's K-8 is the only package that they offer.
I think what you're seeing on there is Waggle is for grades K-8. That's
Okay.
not what we're purchasing it. You have to look at the number of students they're purchasing that for, and I think it will say like 200.
200 students.
So it would, if we were gonna go K-8, it would be more than that. So it's,
Okay.
that is correct. But what I was gonna say was that part of this cost is also the training. And we would not have to pay for that training every time either. So it's gonna be less than 65,000 because we're not going to be doing the same trainings for the next 2 years or the next year's implementation. So there is that cost.
Which is $7,500.
One of the things that our rep has said is that he would, Brian mentioned it, that the elementary school could pilot the teachers' licenses for the elementary school for this next year, so that would be at no cost to the district. The teachers could pilot it and get kind of used to the program. And he also said there is a way that we could pilot some with Waggle trials too, which would be an added bonus. And then the trainings where, because all of Clemens staff would be trained this school year on both Waggle and the intermediate curriculum, the training that's built in could be done on professional learning Fridays, and then there's multiple trainings throughout the year with the coach, so it's very good training. But because our staff would be trained, we wouldn't have to pay as much to train the 2 through 5 staff, because we'd already have people trained, and we could use them as the coaches to help implement it at the other grade levels, so.
Well, it also doesn't say how many people can attend the training,
Right.
it's just one training and it says K-6.
Mhm.
So technically, they could just attend it,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's how I read this anyway.
Okay, how many students is it based on? I mean.
100 students per grade level.
100 per grade level.
Yeah.
And
Which is more than what we have for enrollment right now.
that's
So I think at our smallest is probably what, 3rd grade is our smallest enrollment?
2nd grade.
2nd grade, that's going into 3rd grade next year. So how many students is that?
There's about 70 there right now and climbing, and they're like 90 in 5th grade. Really plus.
Yeah, and Blodgett's 3rd grade next year will have 7, 6, something like that.
So we do have extra licenses for number of students, and typically we do that extra just in case we get increased enrollment, but we could look at that to decrease costs.
yeah, so you got room to grow in all the grades or
Yeah.
just,
The closest would be 5th grade,
Fifth
because we have 90 right now, and that's typically our highest number of students. So-
and they would be 3rd graders this year? Because we're not gonna use it next year, but we'll use it the year after, so they would be 3rd graders this year. How big is the 3rd grade class this year?
In the 80s, 80
Okay.
something, yeah.
So they, good chance they'll be close to 100. And then do you have to buy per student, over 100?
Yes, but if we're already paying, like, say, my kindergarten class only has 70 students one year, and we have 105 in 5th grade, you should be able to just flex those
Oh, you
numbers.
can,
easily.
okay.
The only thing that we would want to make sure is that we have these
Yeah,
controllable
the
things
right
and none of
books.
those, and we can get one of those.
Okay. all right, that's covered what I. Anybody have more questions?
Did you have any parent input? We made it available to parents for 2 weeks. I did have a handful of parents come in and look, but I didn't get any direct feedback.
I did not either. Parents came in and looked, in fact, Lily was just saying she got a call from a grandparent that wants to come see. So we'll keep the materials out, they've been out, and some people have come to take a look, so they're available. But I haven't had anybody make comments about it.
Okay, so we've approved budgeted money to buy curriculum.
Yes.
Do we have to approve this curriculum or it's just up to whatever they?
You're approving, I mean, the way the state setup is we've got to approve the curriculum that we're putting forward. So you're saying, yes, we will agree to, or not, the adoption of into reading for K-5 students with implementation at K-1 in 23-24 and 2 through 5 in
22, 23.
sorry, my bad, I'm thinking a year out. And then we move forward in terms of looking at the finance. And like I said, I asked Abby to go on the high end so that we would be able to play with that and ask our questions, especially about WAGL that we need to ask, and then be able to go from there. But yeah, we put $150,000 into ESSER for instructional materials, and we've got $15,000 in this year's current student investment account funds for supplementary materials, or I can't remember the word I used now. But we can use that. So yeah, we've looked at where the finances are, and we want to make sure that they're being used for that. So, but yeah, we're good with the money.
Okay, but the action required is where I was going with this. We have to have an action on this because it's under strategy and discussion.
Yeah,
That's
so
why-
you're saying, yes, we agree to this curriculum adoption, or
Okay.
no, we don't.
All right, so I will entertain a motion. If so moved.
I move that we approve this as presented to us today with the timeline and budget. That way I'm just saying.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank
Thank you. Thanks for all your hard work.
The team has been
You're
awesome.
working on it and
Do we
everything. And
use-
that's everyone involved.
Pass that on.
Yes. Yeah, I know this was a lot of work, so.
Adoption is close.
I could do that.
Very good, very good.
So, which now brings us, I believe, back to my yellow copy here, Philomath Academy, Mr. Dan Johnson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Mark, very much.
Thanks, Mark. Nice to meet
We
you.
have a document that is supposedly done every year. And last year, I know with COVID, that we didn't take the actual time to do that, but it was done the year prior when we approved the academy. Which is a review of board policy to make sure that the board, meets all of the criteria that ODE. A few of us went through it together, looked through it to make sure that we were compliant. My grading system on this was pretty simple. I didn't worry about exceeding, did we meet it? So as you go through the document, you'll notice that we've got everything but a C except for the private alternative schools that we contract with, because we don't. I left that blank. So what we're looking for this evening is just the board accepting that this has been done. You've looked through it, I hope that you agree that the policies are there. I just, I was teasing Susan earlier. I did bring the policies if you want to look at them. So, put them out by whatever. I actually thought I'd put it in the board packet, but I figured Lily would be really upset at me putting 500 pages into the board packet.
Thanks for the offer.
You're very welcome, you're very welcome. So what we're looking for, because the state requires it, is you saying, yes, we want to maintain an alternative program / school. The minutes at the end of this meeting get attached to it, we mail it to them. Andy Marr just puts it in a file cabinet and says, Philomath is compliant. Literally that process, and next year you'll see me again and we'll go through the same process.
Okay, so do we want to adopt each one of these individually? annual board policy review, the curriculum adoption, and the board policy review? Or do we want to do it all together?
It really doesn't matter. I mean, you can do them all as one of your preferences to do that.
Well, let's just do them as a
Okay,
presented.
that works.
We'll just do one right now. So.
So board policy review would be the first one in logical order. Board policies went through, that doesn't even need really, it's just a information for you. It was done, you have questions about the policies, we can discuss them.
Okay, so we don't have to take any
There's
action
nothing
on that.
So action item would be to approve alternative education for Philomath. So we can staple it and send it to ODE.
Okay,
And then the third, my staff and I also, I filled out the form, the independent curriculum. We went through 5 or 6 different curriculums, looking at something that would allow us the opportunity to have one platform, K-12. This year, we are currently using now down to 3. Cost-wise, by using the one, we actually are saving some money, because one of the curriculums that we're using for K2, Jennifer House is teaching the class, but we have to rent the materials from the fuel education folks, so we have a monthly bill that comes with that. I was laughing in my own little seat back there, and everyone was saying it's exciting that the curriculum that you just adopted for them has online materials. The Academy is excited to say that the online materials that we're using have books. And Pearson, who we're asking, have about it, mails them for free, so there's no additional cost to that. So it's, I guess it's a point of reference from where you're at. So, I mean, those are the 2 action items. First is approval of the yearly approval that we're compliant. And then the second is, approval of a singular curriculum, which is Pearson Connexus. It's on the state list. We looked at what we had. In order to, if we didn't do that one, we would be using probably the similar things. Fuel, which is now Stride Education's K2 materials. Odyssey Ware maybe for 3.5 and credit recovery. And then we're using a different curriculum called Apex to cover 612. And it's just fun when you're one of the online teachers printing stuff out and trying to grade from 3 different platforms.
so I have 3 different things on here. Annual board policy review, which you just did,
Yes.
that we don't have to take action on.
Correct.
Yeah, we do. Oh,
Not the policy.
right. Curriculum adoption, which we need to take action.
Yes, it's in your packet, and
Yeah, and the board policies review.
which is the board adoption, specifically called alternative education annual program approval / disapproval.
Well,
Is the form that should be in there.
it's listed here under board policies review. It said board policy review for alternative education.
Right, and the state calls that the alternative education programs toolkit.
And the annual turnover, we have to review, and so it's just to say that we have reviewed our alternative learning program, and we approve or we don't.
Okay, so we just have to approve one thing then.
Yes, and this, and
That and the curriculum.
Oh, is it- oh, okay.
Rick, just to show you, because it's state stuff. Here is what the policy review looks like.
Yeah, I see.
And here's what the approval looks like. The difference is the front and the bottom for a signature in minutes, literally. It's the same thing. 1, the group did. 2, the board says yes.
Okay. All right, so I'll entertain a motion for the annual alternative learning approval.
Yes.
I so move. Second. Okay, been moved and seconded. All those in favor? I'll skip the question. We just had the discussion. All right. 5-0 Lillian approval. And the next one will be the curriculum adoption. I'll entertain a motion for the curriculum adoption.
I move that we approve the curriculum adoption for the World Academy as presented in our packet.
Okay. Second. A second. Okay, been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
I do want to just put a piece of information out, a discussion item that I would love to get your input from later. Beth Edgman asked me, and I think that might be a good idea. So your suggestion is next school year, the 22-23 school year. This year we have graduation on Friday night at 7 o'clock. June the 10th. We have it on the calendar currently for the following school year for Friday night, the 9th. And she suggested, because there are some students that we're kind of raising our eyebrows at right now at the high school that might need a little extra time, that may need to come to the academy to see if we can give them an extra week. So we're thinking it may be great to do it like on Thursday night before the half day, or the last full day of school. So move the graduation next year.
So you're talking Falmouth High School will
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
be first,
Correct.
and then the Thursday after that will be the academy graduation.
Yes,
Okay.
and if any student comes up Memorial Day, and Mr. Daly, so we've had a few we worried about in the past, it may give us that extra time for us to.
Yeah, I just want to get it right in my mind that that's what you were asking. is
We're
that-
floating the idea out there as to what do you think, and if you think it's great, then we'll ask for a calendar change next
I
year.
don't have a problem with it. So, but that's a discussion we'll have to have later on the calendar.
Yes,
And is the Philomath Academy graduation at, did you say 7 p.m.?
7 p.m.
Okay, then
7
it's
p.m.
incorrect on our
Yes,
agenda.
it is.
so we'll-
I plugged that out there based on what was on the calendar.
Yes.
It included setup and time like that. so-
Right, 7 p.m. start. I believe we currently have 20 young people. Well, we have 20 that are going to walk. How many of them come? I'm amazed at the amount of young people that are just uncertain about the embarrassment or whatever, I don't know, of the graduation ceremony. It's like, wow.
In the auditorium.
In the auditorium.
Okay. All right, great, thanks, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Take my sticker with me.
Okay, now we have done this Kings Valley Charter discussion.
Yes, we continue our negotiations, and where we've gotten to. Yes, I do. In the last 3 days, we've made some good headway. Come on.
We are excited.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Kings Valley had a board meeting on Monday. And there's been 2 places where we've been, shall we say, stuck, because we wanted to make the language line up. One of them had to do with the funding mechanism. Traditionally, we have given 92% of the collected state school fund, and Jennifer's going to keep me honest, for every enrolled K-8 student, and 95% of the funding for every 912 student. We have found over the last year, at least the last year, that because the district is providing special education service, and there are, let's see, this year there's like 170 students at Kings Valley, of which 30 something are special education, which is a very high percentage. And with the district providing the special education service and paying the staff, paying for director time, paying for the school psychologist report or support to be able to attend meetings, that we're eating into our budget as a whole in an unequal percentage, with the burden being on the district for the expenses. And so we've tried to work through and couch that in an appropriate way that is agreeable. at the grade levels K-8, the amount that you are required to support to a charter school is 80%. When the charter first started, Philomath put that at 92. So it's been up above that consistently for the lifespan of the charter. The other thing that they get is now they're up to 92% of the remote small school funding that they will receive also. They get grant funding and, you know, that we help them with and support. And so it was really a way of being able to say, we need your help in what's costing us. And so the section 10, which is the financial management, was something that we put a draft out for their Monday meeting. And the general premise is we're talking about for the initial weight for student enrollment, for students not eligible for special education and related services would be that same 92%, 95%. And for students eligible for special education and related services, you can apply that differently. So the district will provide 40% of both weights. I mean, if this is, you know, if it's Tuesday, it's something different. So I'm sorry, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. That we will give them 40% of the whole funding for a special education student, and we will maintain as a district 60% for that 30 students or however many it is. That gives us the opportunity to be able to not get lost in underfunding for district, or being able to have people go do things that we just don't have the bandwidth to do. We put in that the rate would be reviewed and adjusted annually as might be needed by an MOU, seeking to maintain equitable student funding ratios with the rest of the district. So if their special education numbers drop down, of course, the funding will change, just as a matter of course. But also we could look at in each year, dependent upon where we are, can that 40% become 45%? Can that 40% become 50%? Does it need to stay at 40%? What do we need to do? And so it's just about engaging in the conversation. And it was a way that we wanted to just put out there to see what happens. Kings Valley's board said we'll go for it. So they are committed to, their board is committed to the financial part of it, which I wanted to make sure was known because that was a real recent deal. The other section that we have to work on is the section about third-party contracts. And it's not a deal breaker. It's really more about making sure that there's clarity in the language about third-party contracts. So the use of people sustaining Kings Valley. People sustaining Kings Valley has been in the charter since the beginning. We just want to clean up what the language is and what it means, and be able to make that right. But that's more of a semantics cleanup or than it is a the financials is a huge thing in terms of the yes or the no's. The other is really more about making things make sense to both parties across the charter. We've told Kings Valley that our intent has never been to shut them down, that they are a viable presence, and it is not our intent to go that direction. It's just working out the deals that we need. So, of course, they're getting nervous, and I don't blame them, because the charter gives their staff the knowledge that they're going to be in business for the next 10 years as we charter that appropriately. So I did find out yesterday that they will continue next year their team management. And part of that is a decision of its workability, but also that they've not been completely satisfied with what they've got for applicants in the director pool. And so The plan is to operate with Carrie Ann Gonzalez, who's been at this year. Scott Castle's stepping away, and I wish Athena Lodge is stepping into the role. Diana Barnhart and Mark Hazelton. So I don't want to approve the whole charter because I think the board needs time to see it in its entirety and be able to formally approve the whole thing when we get to June. Part of me wondered tonight, can we entertain the possibility or not of approving it conceptually in terms of the funding package being in order and the cleanup with a final approval in June, that there's some way that we can give them some comfort that we're moving forward. That's just a suggestion.
I don't know that I'd be real comfortable with committing to that, but maybe,
And I'm good with that.
well, maybe a consensus from the board that we're in favor of you continuing on with,
Okay.
with what you're doing there.
Yep.
Rather than a vote that
No, and I'm good with that.
ties us to that.
Yes.
I really, if something goes south and we're still tied to it, I would like to get it
Yes.
a clean copy to us that we can read and then we'll vote for approval. But as things stand now, I would be in favor of you continuing to work on, was it section 11? The third party contract?
I can't remember what that number is, but
But the
yeah.
third party contract, and then bringing it back to us in June, a full
Yes.
charter for us to look at and approve.
yeah, and I didn't want it, there's no full approval that I wanted because I knew I couldn't get this in cleaned up shape for tonight.
Yeah, but no, I think that just a consensus from the board would be sufficient to let their board know that we're moving in the right direction. And
Right, I appreciate
there's
that.
no
We want to
problems
move forward
here.
with this.
So I think that, is that okay with you, Joe? Okay, so
So,
you can let them,
oh, sorry, I was
No,
just
go
gonna
ahead,
say,
Karen.
from that financial standpoint that we've discussed a few times about the additional expenses, this at least mostly solves that?
Yeah.
Okay.
so,
Yeah, we've created some pretty crafty spreadsheets.
okay, so I think you can let them know that there's a consensus on our board that is going in the right direction.
Thank you. I think that will help them feel better, and I am in complete agreement with you that to approve this whole thing or to approve it now is not the right thing.
Yeah. No. Okay. So moving on, OSCA PSD bargaining.
Quick, we were put in a holding pattern with bargaining with OSCA. We had our first meeting and went through every article in their agreement to be able to say, Article 1, we both are in agreement that it's okay, so we're gonna agree with that one and put it aside. Article 2, one side or the other would say, well, we want to keep that open because we've got punctuation and things like that we need to fix. Article 3, no, we got to keep that one open, that sort of a thing. So we knew out of the chute where we were coming from with articles that were going to be addressed. Unfortunately, before our next meeting, when the proposals were hit the table, they lost their OSCA representative on an extended leave. And so now that we know it's an extended leave, they have a replacement representative, and we'll be getting dates out to be able to continue the process, to be able to get us back on track. But that's what's slowed us at this point in time, because originally they thought that the representative would be gone for maybe 2 weeks. And so didn't want to put a substitute in for somebody to present what they had in mind without knowing them. So we're in a better position now, and we're ready to move forward.
Okay. Ready School Safe Learners update.
Thank you, Mr. Trailer.
Yes.
Put up The resiliency framework has not changed since the end of March. I share with our leadership team every week the Benton County metrics and information there. So you can see that we've got a high vaccination rate in the county. We were at 218 cases per 100,000 and an 8.8 test positivity. And those are for PCR tests. They're not the quick versions at home and things like that. And so we know that this is anywhere a little bit speculative because it's not including all the things that were once included in that information. The other thing that we know is Benton County is one of the highest tested counties in the state, which also changes that. There's a lot of people that choose to get tested, which adds to this. We're now in the Center for Disease Control metrics in a medium, and we just want to be thoughtful about that. And we keep listening to the Benton County Health Department about what they're thinking, what we're going to do. So that's just constantly on our radar. We continue to put out information each week about what our COVID rates are across the district. And so that goes up every week. Laura Bryant sends the updated information, and Megan Caputo in the district office puts that in and updates it for us, which is great. We do have more upcoming vaccine clinics. Tomorrow is one. These ones are all on Fridays, so May 20th, June 24th, and July 22nd, all in the Clones Primary Cafeteria. They're encouraging booster shots. We had a couple of lows in February and March in terms of participants. Abby, I think you said at the May or the April one, there might have been like 90 people. So it came back up again with people seeking primarily booster shots, although there were people there getting an initial vaccine, which is good.
Yeah, and tomorrow night, now 5 to 11-year-olds are eligible for boosters, so we should see another.
Yep. So I wanted to really highlight, looking ahead, we're hoping that the start of 22-23 is like we started this year. I mean, it was the initial summer when everything spiked and, we couldn't, it was just a mess. And so we're hoping that we can start the school year in the same way that we're ending this one. The Ready School Safe Learners guidance and documents are going to go away to more locally established plans. This year, we've been working off of a district plan for safe return to school. The request from the Department of Education now is to have every school and program craft a plan for what they call a COVID-19 management plan. We don't have to send the plan to the state, but we have to show them where it's posted on our webpage. And we have to send a document of assurances that says, we'll prevent, detect, respond to and recover, we're going to verify readiness to prevent, detect, respond to and recover from a communicable disease event, ensure continuity of instruction, continuity of learning, and communicating our plans to staff, students, families, and community. The more we get into this, and I'm looking Len's direction, we've had with both PEA and OSEA memorandums of understanding based on COVID. And we just need to look through them to see if we've got to go back there again next year and what that looks like and what we do. The assurances are due to ODE no later than August 26th. And the plan documents I will put also on the webpage in the information that we put out after the meeting, that our plan right now is to craft the shell from our district plan last year, and then take that and do the subtle nuances that may need to happen for each individual site, rather than having each individual site write their own different plan. And so we want to start with something consistent. The idea will be to go back to our early blueprint team and ask for their involvement. And if they choose not to be involved, or if they have another replacement that they're thinking of from their school, or if other people want to be involved, we'll change that up. But that will give us a chance to have the input that we need to be able to make sure our plans are actionable and that we have them all done. Because we're going to hit summertime, and August 26th, that's the last thing folks want to do when they come back. So those are the plans that we'll be looking at that put a lot of local control back in the hands of schools and districts. And that's where we'll move ahead.
Okay. That. Take care of that.
That's that.
Okay, and then we have superintendent evaluation on here, but I already mentioned it up above, so we'll just skip right past that. And we'll go to the local option levy.
And
Christopher.
I'm gonna look to Christopher to be able to share, and I already talked to Rick about one of the things that we would like to do this evening with the action required is to approve the local option levy rate. What that does is that allows us the opportunity to make sure, so we can file our titling in early June. We don't have to wait. And it also opens the door for being able to have arguments in favor, arguments against put together, so that we're not running rampant at the end of the summer to try and do that. So I'm going to be quiet and
No, I mean,
let the person doing the work.
I don't have a ton, just that is correct, that the earliest we can file the title is June 6th. So in order to do that, we just need to know what we're filing, which is up to you. The current proposal is to just keep it the same. So we're not increasing it. So, you know, that obviously with inflation and everything, we might want to increase it. But what I wanted to talk about a little bit tonight is on Tuesday night, the primary election, there were 15 school-related measures across the state, either bonds or levies. 9 of them failed and 6 of them succeeded. So I think that's just important for us to recognize that we're not seeing, you know, just completely smooth sailing across the state with these things. But it's not all bad news. For the first bit, as I just said, we are not raising taxes, so that would be a big sell. We are not raising your taxes. We are just asking you not to cut your taxes. Because we want to educate our kids, which I think we'll be able to sell, but that will set us apart from some of the ones that fail, which are actually raising taxes, raising the levy rate, or again, doing a new bond measure for construction. A lot of the ones that failed were these one-time bond measures for construction. It's easier to sell parents on you know, not laying off teachers than it is on building a fancy new swimming pool or something like that. So I think that will help us. And then I think the other big thing to realize is Corvallis's bond measure, which did raise taxes, did pass. And I think we are culturally similar to Corvallis just in terms of the value that our community puts on public education and always has. And I'm confident that that will continue to be the case. So sort of a mixed bag. The other thing to keep in mind is, I think, and this was a factor in some of the ones failing, there's a perception in the public that school districts have received a ton of cash over the last couple of years from the state, from the federal government, because of all the COVID money. So a lot of voters have asked, hey, we've been reading in the news how you've gotten hundreds of millions of dollars of cash dropped on you. Why are you asking us for more money now? So I think, again, we emphasize we're not asking for more money, we're asking for the same amount of money. And we emphasize that that's all one-time spending. We can't pay teacher salaries with that. We can't, you know, use that after like next year or whatever. Whereas the levy will be able to actually fund those salaries, you know, well into the future and be sustainable. So that's just sort of the broad overview. Once we vote on it tonight, then we will be prepared to file that with the county clerk come June 6th or shortly thereafter. And then once we do that, we can start actually going out into the community, trying to get endorsements, trying to go to community organizations, do some public education, try to build up some support. If we need to do fundraising for a PAC or anything like that. And then as we get closer to the November election, we'll start actually doing more of the, you know, traditional campaigning type things. But that's not for a few months. So the big thing right now is getting you all to approve the proposal, getting it filed, and then starting to do some of that outreach. So I don't know if you have any questions, but I'm happy to answer them.
You know, I just want to make sure that all board members and myself and everybody understand the rate of 150 per thousand is
Yes.
what the current levy is, and that's what we're gonna ask for in the new levy.
Yes, I mean, that's up to you.
Okay.
If you want to raise it, you're welcome to. If you want to lower it, you're welcome to, but you've all seen the budgets. I wouldn't recommend lowering it. And you've all seen the election results, so I wouldn't recommend raising it. So, just, take that as you will.
Okay, so I'll be willing to entertain a motion of whatever somebody wants to, but that's what it has been, so.
I would move that we approve the rate at the existing
Of $1.50 per thousand.
$1.50 per thousand.
Okay. Been moved, second,
I'll second that.
okay, Joe seconds, it's been moved and seconded, all in favor? Opposed, the motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Christopher.
Christopher has been awesome with this. Former board member Shelley Brown has also met with us and engaged in conversation. We've reached out to Jim Kilday, and a few other people to be able to continue to put things together. And Christopher continues to say, have you thought about? And we're starting to put together the success stories of this is what we promised you for the last 5 years, and we've kept our promise. And then it's kind of, where are we headed here? So we're starting to work on that, the informational pieces that will need to go out.
And I think to that end, as we generate those informational promises, I think it'll be important to make promises that we are confident we can keep.
Yes.
Because I think that was very important this time, and I think, whatever we articulate to the community, and don't overpromise. If we say, this is what we can promise you, we hope to do these other things, but we know we'll stay here. I think that's more important than making a promise that then, for whatever reason, we can't.
Maybe under promise and over produce.
You got it, yep, and even saying, this is what we promised to, here's what we hope to also do, but this core is, we're committed to.
And then it would probably be helpful if we could get information about what we are allowed and not allowed to do in regard to getting the information out there and because I know I attended that workshop. There were some very specific legal things that we are permitted or not permitted to do. So
The board can kind of do whatever they want, can't they?
I think the main thing is you can only spend district money informing the public about it. You cannot say vote for it or vote against it, but you can inform the public what the bond or what the levy means and what it means.
Anything supporting or whatever, it would have to come from a PAC or separate money, that's not district money.
So the district could email people a postcard that's like, there will be a levy on the ballot, it will fund this, period. The PAC could email people a postcard that's like, there will be a levy, you should vote for it.
but like we're also not allowed to ask someone to help us do something during their normal course of business.
Well, yeah, district
And we
employees.
just have to be really careful. That's, I
Yeah.
just. Maybe we could send a link to one of the packets of information that we got, just
Okay.
so that,
Good idea.
No, that'd
Again.
be good.
I even get scared to send emails sometimes. So I just want to make sure that I'm not doing anything improper.
Okay. And we can move on to the action item. Consent agenda.
Anything we need to focus on, or are we just good to go?
I don't think so, just that, make sure that the resolution
Yeah, she was
for
already.
the transfer of the funds is there, so.
Jennifer Hills, so yeah.
Other than that, it's just business as usual,
We have to separate,
unless somebody has something.
we have to separate, we don't have to separate the resolution out.
No.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented in our packet.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Okay, policy second reading. And I don't have it listed on mine, I think there was one policy from last time that we looked at.
Yeah, there were
One
two.
that were
Oh,
related.
yeah, two. Well, one of them's an AR.
Administrative role, they're both connected.
GBNAA/JHFF and the AR that goes with it.
And then we got the explanation back, because the reason we didn't adopt last time is because we wanted more clarification from OSBA.
Right.
About the legalities, and mostly wasn't it contractors or outside, people, and that explanation is there.
So it sounds like the language that I was questioning is part of the ORS, so it's gonna be in there.
Yeah.
But I think it's more a matter of making sure our district staff recognize what their requirements are under that ORS. And so that was helpful to get that clarification, which is in our packet. So thank you for reaching out and getting that clarification. Thank you.
So I will entertain a motion on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I so move that we accept the policies, GBN, AA/JHFF, and NRI goes with it.
Second.
Okay, we have moved and seconded. All those in favor? All right, motion passes 5-0. Okay, I've got one little thing that goes on. I'd like to get an action on it, and that is the board self-evaluation. We wanted to do a board self-evaluation, and I got on the OSBA site, which has always had that on there. It's no longer on there because somebody purchased it or claimed the rights to it.
Got it.
So now OSBA has to purchase it to use it. And to get somebody to come down to purchase that, to get somebody to come down and have a training with us for the board self-evaluation, and get ready for this, it's $500. Personally, I think that's expensive for what we need. I don't know what the rest of you feel, but that's where I'm at with it. But I'm open to discussion.
Are there any rules, regulations, policies, laws that govern the fact that we need, I mean, obviously we should do it, but is there anything required as far as the board self-evaluation?
I don't know that it's required.
It's
It's a good thing, sure. For me, it's a good thing to do that, to self-evaluate how we've done for the last year and to get it out in front of the community and to get maybe some community response to it, to see how the community feels we're doing on it also. So, but it's more of a board self-evaluation than it is, the community. But we can get it out there to, the community that, we feel we're doing okay in this part of it, but we need a little bit more work on these things. And but I'm not sure, $500 to me is a little bit steep.
I agree. And I actually think the resources are out there on the internet. I mean, if you just Google board self-evaluation, and there's lots of information out there about how to do that without paying.
Sure.
Not that it would be used in many other ways in our district.
But I just thought I'd throw that out there because that's what I found out today going through OSBA, and it took me about 4 phone calls to get anybody to answer the phone. So yeah, I mean, we don't have to take action on it. I would just throw it in here as if we did want to take action on it as a expense, it's fine. If not, we'll just move on and we'll get on the internet and look for self-evaluation.
I'm sure we could find something that would be decent to use.
Okay, well, that's what I thought, but I just
So
thought I'd give
who would
everybody.
like to take that on? Because when we say we, that means nobody will do it. So
Well, okay, since I got a few days off, I will try to get on there and see what I can find. I'm not the most computer savvy person, but we'll stumble through it. And if I need help, there's 4 other people that I can call and say, hey.
absolutely.
I'll be your secretary.
Okay,
Since I'm
yeah,
also.
so I'll take responsibility for that one.
And I'm really good at setting up online forms. So
Okay.
if we need to do that,
All right.
we're sending it out to the larger public.
Okay, sounds good. I did have one other question. Well, let's go to meeting closure, board reports and things. But I got a question more than a report. The student information system.
Yes.
With the PSD.
Yes.
They're going to a new system. What's the cause of that?
the superintendents, a number of superintendents had expressed an unhappiness, again, with the ability to access the kinds of things we need. And so we looked at programs because we knew that there were two things in process. The ESD written program is written in old code. And they're starting to retire the people that know how to work on that old code.
That's the system we're using currently.
And so we know that at minimum, that code would have had to be rewritten.
Okay.
So the other thing we then looked at was what would be a cost of moving to an all-in-one package that allows us with some reporting potential that we don't currently have. And it also is a program that a number of other districts in the state already utilize.
Okay.
And
Well,
so that was the crux of it.
that was the reason we went to the system we're on now, is because the other districts were using it. We were kind of self-contained before.
Oh, when we went to Power School, yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then we, just went in, and I was just curious if we were doing the same thing, just kind of an update.
This is really staying with the
Oh,
ESD.
Yeah,
And
no, but it's an update to the
yes,
system that we're using.
it really is a replacement.
Okay,
But it's, same group, same intent, same purpose.
and my second question that, goes along with the curriculum adoption, how long do they think that this will be serviceable? I mean, kind of indefinite or?
They're looking indefinite right now. We've got an advantage of Lincoln County onboarded into this program this current school year.
Yeah.
And so we've got somebody that's kind of
That's
already
using it
into
already.
it.
Okay,
And so we know more about it, but really it's kind of an indefinite. One of the things that we agreed to was rather than having help desk support from, I can't remember the name of the synergy provider, but rather than having help desk support from them, the help desk support would remain at the ESD, because that's one of the strengths that everybody has found about the use of our current system is, while the system can be clunky, the help desk is incredible. And so we'll have some ability to customize and do some different things, which will be very nice.
all right. Let's go ahead and move on to board thanks.
I wanted to take time to thank everyone who did take the time to fill out this written evaluation. I know there's a lot of questions on there, and I appreciate all the time that was spent by people giving us some valuable feedback. And so, thank you for your time doing that.
And then I had the wonderful experience of getting to do an art project with the middle school staff. And I'm wrapping up the framing of that installation. I'll be delivering it to the middle school, so I'll be sure to bring photos to the next meeting to show everyone. But we did a copper tooling project where everybody got a square of a copper with like a dotting tool is what it's called, and they got to create a little piece of art. There were some very, like, what you would consider more like traditional art approaches, and then some really fun ones also. So it's a really nice mix of personalities that'll be on display. And it was just, it was enriching for me, and the feedback that I got was very positive from the people who took part in it also. They were getting to talk to each other, and it was during professional learning time, so we took, I think, about half an hour out of that dedicated to that, and it was something that the site council discussed and was on board with at the middle school. So it might be something that I propose bringing to other schools as well. And like I said, I had a great time. It was really fun for me. So
I want to thank Christopher, Shelley, and others who have or will be working on the levy. I wanted to thank those folks who worked on curriculum adoption, not only those who are here presenting tonight, but I know a lot of folks put in a lot of time above and beyond their regular duties. I guess listen to thanks, but certainly want to recognize, we look on our agenda here, all the folks who are getting ready for music programs, spring concerts, and all the effort that gets put into those things. Thinking back with someone who's graduating, with those many events, I know those are fun, not only for parents, but grandparents and community members. And then also recognizing our student athletes who are right in the midst of another solid spring, and the support not only from their coaches, parents, community, educators, and representing for wellness across the state.
Okay.
I have one more I thought of, sorry. I want to thank the cheer team, but also the cheer coach at the high school. They are this whole year, they have been focused on raising money to buy mats for the team so that they can host competitions here, which if you've never been involved in one of those sorts of things, they are a huge fundraiser for the program. And I believe that they have raised close, and I might be wrong, so my apologies, but I believe they've raised something like $8,000 for the total that they need this year. And Kathy Kohler just goes above and beyond with what she does with that team. She is so dedicated and works so hard. So this summer they'll be doing more fundraisers, including the fireworks stand that they do over behind Beggs here in town. And hoping to host an exhibition also where we'll borrow mats from another school district to do the exhibition and hopefully close that final gap in being able to buy their own mats and some other equipment that's really needed for the program. So my thanks to all of that hard work. I did not help at all, even though I am a cheer mom. So next year.
Okay, Joe. I just want to thank the district staff. We're in the final stretch of this year, and it's so much to do to prepare for graduation and all the activities and everything else, and just the general academics. It's been such a hard couple of years, and teachers and then classified administrators are all doing such the best job they can and doing a great job.
Okay. Well, you guys covered everything I got written down except for one thing, so, the staff is huge. I mean, the whole staff, everybody, and of course, what Christopher started to do with the levy, trying to get us some more money. The one thing I did have on here was Dick Powell's presentation on the natural resources. Having been in the business for a long time, it's a great to see the support that they're getting from the general public now, as opposed to just the forestry groups that it used to be. It's kind of branching out, and everybody's realizing that we have to have that to survive. So great thanks to Dick Powell, and like I said, everybody else covered the other stuff that I have written down, except for fellow board members. I would like to thank you and appreciate what you guys have been doing lately with the evaluation, the extra work that it takes to do that, and the extra work we're going to have coming up with the self-evaluation, the budget committee, graduation. It gets to be, I mean, like, we're not busy any other time of the year, but it kind of gets a little busier now. But I really do appreciate the board in what they do and make this district the best that it can be. So anyhow, that's all I had. So. Anyhow, moving on, next meeting agenda items. Does anybody have anything? Okay, board requests and adjournment, but the only request that I'll have is that we do on May 25th have our board retreat, and 5 o'clock. 5:30. Okay, I couldn't remember. And that'll be right here in the boardroom. So, and that is open to the public. What's that?
It's a super fun retreat. What a fun retreat. Should be called work sessions.
Yeah, like my wife said, she said, well, that's not much of a retreat. I thought you guys were gonna go to the coast. I said, well, it's gotta be inside the district. So I said, we have went over to the city park one year and did it, that's. But yeah, that'll be on the 25th. And I'm sure that Lillian will have all the information out on the website as far as what we're gonna cover. For the agenda. Yeah, so,
I sent an email to all of you too.
yeah, but I meant for the general public, if they wanted to come and listen to the conversation, because it'll only be a listening session for the public to come into it. It's the board to do, business and whatnot. So, but the general public's welcome to come in and hear what we're doing. So,
Yeah, just no public comment.
Right, yep.
So, it's an official public.
So anyhow, if nobody has anything else, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.